Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
If you're a rural Alaskan resident, consider applying for a seat on one of the Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Councils by Friday, January 29, 2016. Applicants who have knowledge of the regional subsistence uses, customs, and traditions are needed. Council meetings serve as a forum for regional public involvement in subsistence management. Information at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Looking at the, the advisory map here, warnings and watches as well. Got winter storm watches out for the North Gulf Coast here around Yakutat and areas of the central, northern, southeast coast. And that's for late Sunday night and into Monday. There's a next front pushes in. Possibility bringing some significant snowfall into these areas at that time. Otherwise, out here to the west, winter weather advisory out for the Bristol Bay area for winds increasing late tonight into tomorrow, 35 to 50 miles per hour, snow and blowing snow. Could see 2 to 6 inches of snow in this area, along with those winds to 50 miles an hour. That'll create visibilities down to about half a mile at times. More of a whiteout condition expected up here over the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta and Nunivak Island areas that's a blizzard warning out in that area there. There's also a blizzard warning out for the St. Lawrence Island area and the Bering Strait coast. And then lastly here, a winter weather watch for the lower Yukon Valley for later tomorrow and tomorrow night. And moving on to satellite imagery. Yesterday, we had low pressure here coming up out of the Gulf, moving to the Kenai Peninsula, and that's circulated moisture up into the southern part of the state, and then some return flow coming back around with some snow in from the northwest there. A lot of cold air coming down out of the Bering Sea with snow showers, gusty northwest winds, that all swinging into the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And again, out to the west there, had a weak system here bringing some light snow into the central Aleutians, a little bit stronger up through here. And then right on the edge of the chart, the cirrus shield associated with the next big storm that moved northeastward. And today, you can see wound up quite nicely here, brought strong winds into the central Aleutians there with the low center moving between Adak and Amchitka Island this afternoon. Otherwise, better conditions here along the southwest coast. Still some lingering snow showers through this area, as well as Kodiak Island, and mostly cloudy snow showers across south central Alaska, Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast. Just some varying amounts of clouds up over the interior Alaska. One batch here slipping westward, and then another area of moisture up here along the western Arctic coast. Some of that trailing across the Seward Peninsula into Norton Sound. Another pretty good storm system moving in toward Vancouver Island there, and that circulated some clouds, a little bit of light rain in over the southern southeast coast earlier today. Otherwise, some scattered snow showers up around the Juneau area throughout the afternoon, and a lot of snow showers out here over the Gulf of Alaska, again coming up to the North Gulf Coast. And on today's chart, there's that low southern Prince William Sound, snow showers Kodiak Island, right up to the North Gulf Coast, across south central Alaska. Anywhere from 1 to 3 inches falling in some areas there, with scattered conditions back along the Alaska Range. Also some scattered snow showers lingering, not to the extent they were yesterday here along the southwest coast, down to the Alaska Peninsula. Variable clouds, flurries over the interior, and then that big storm system coming up, 932 millibars roughly, give or take there, with the front pushing into the central Aleutians. Temperature popped up to around 50 degrees at Adak at 4:30, winds south gusting over 90 miles per hour at Adak there, and very strong northerly winds up to 70 or 80 miles an hour back towards Shimia, with snow and blowing snow out in that area. And Winds picking up at Nikolsky to about 50 miles an hour. Also for the Pribilofs, winds gusting up to about 50 miles per hour and continue to increase this evening as that front pushes east and northeast. And tonight, late tonight, by about 3 a.m., that should pass the Pribilof Islands there and be down along the Alaska Peninsula with storm force winds and or hurricane force and storm force winds all across the Aleutians and the Bering Sea, and that's swinging into the Alaska Peninsula with snow changing to rain, increasing winds with possibility of some snow reaching Nunivak Island, but most of the moisture looks like will stay off the coast through tonight. Otherwise, fair conditions here, clearing skies, colder temperatures, especially over south central Alaska tonight. Kodiak Island, light winds, maybe some clearing, snow showers ending there this evening with pretty fair conditions right up across the Kobuk Valley and into the North Slope. Could be a few lingering showers up along the Arctic coast there with some lower flying conditions. And variably cloudy skies, flurries from the upper Yukon Valley and then down across the Copper River Basin along the Alaska Range. And this low still off the coast here, kind of drifting to the south a little bit. That's going to keep a chance of snow showers from Cordova into Prince William Sound. Should be pretty dry here along the Panhandle with those snow showers or rain and snow showers staying off the coast. And then for tomorrow, we'll see that low center pushes northward to just almost west of the Pribilof Islands at about midday, and that front pushing up, again bringing the snow and blowing snow into St. Lawrence Island and now across the Yukon Delta, becoming a little more showery here along the Kuskokwim Delta down into Bristol Bay, and rain into Kodiak Island, probably a mixed condition here across the Kenai Peninsula back into the Alaska Range there. Winds across south central Alaska starting to pick up in the afternoon. Lingering snow showers, Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast areas. Pretty fair here through the interior, but the western Alaska Range area starting to see those winds on the increasing winds up here over the northwest interior and the Chukchi Sea as well. Otherwise fair, a few clouds and flurries around the Koyukuk Valley, and then storm force westerlies here, bringing that cold air and snow showers westward there across the western and central Aleutians. Mixed rain and snow showers, quite strong winds. Again, hurricane force wind warnings. South winds 60 knots for the Pribilofs tomorrow with seas at 40 feet as that intense low center passes just to the west of the island there. And then for the next day, Sunday night and into Monday, we'll see that front really weakens as it comes northward and eastward. Just clouds and maybe a few flurries by the time it gets up across the Koyukuk Valley and the upper Yukon as it lifts up toward the Brooks Range. Not really much left to it at all. And then this front driving eastward tomorrow night, late tomorrow night and early on Monday here, that'll bring the chance of snow or increasing snow over the northern and central southeast coast, and then southwest flow behind that. So it'll become more showery late in the day. Look for some pretty good snow showers here as this system pushes up in toward Prince William Sound. Moderate snow showers, Yakutat back toward Cordova. And again, showery here across south central Alaska. A day Monday, much like we had today in the area here with some snow back up to the northwest. And then that low center weakening, but still quite strong out here south of St. Lawrence Island. So east winds 40 to 50 knots there, snow and blowing snow continuing. And then surges of moisture coming in the form of snow, and that'll be with the gusty winds blowing snow and reduced visibilities again. Numerous snow showers sliding into Bristol Bay, and also a lot of snow showers and windy conditions over western Alaska, with snow and blowing snow shifting up toward Kivalina, Point Hope, and Cape Lisburne. But not too bad. Lighter winds, 15 to 20 miles per hour along the eastern and central Arctic coast. Still have some pretty good gales and storms here across the Pribilofs, but diminishing to about 40 knots in the afternoon for St. Paul and St. George. Windy conditions, snow showers into the eastern Aleutians and extending all the way back out toward Shimei and Attu, with snow showers also reaching into the Kodiak Island area during the day on west-southwesterly winds. Temperatures across the southeast coast today, 39 at Annette was one of the warmer locations of the Panhandle, otherwise 31, Yakutat, Skagway, Juneau, as well as Cordova, 25 in Valdez, 20s here across the Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet, 17 at Squentna, -7 Gulkana, 12 above, still pretty breezy there at Delta, but 3 below at Fairbanks, -20 at Fort Yukon, 17 below at Bettles, and a minus 22 at Arctic Village. Up along the Arctic coast, temperatures running 5 to 10 below across the entire stretch of the area up there, and near 0 to 10 below here over the northwest. 4 below at McGrath, and Unalakleet had 7, while Nome was about 2 above. 5 degrees at Amonic, and a minus 1 this afternoon at Bethel. 10 degrees at Macoriac, 2 degrees at Kipnuk. And off to the southwest there, we'll see Togiak had 12, 11 over at King Salmon. Otherwise, mostly in the 20s here across the Alaska Peninsula. The Cold Bay dropped down to 18 degrees this afternoon with calm winds and mostly clear skies. 30s, temperatures rising there at Nikolsky. Again, those southeast winds up to 50 miles per hour. Upper 20s for the Pribilofs, and those temperatures will continue to go up this evening. And 48 at Atka, while Adak dropped back down to 39. For the lows tonight, anywhere from 32 at Shimia to upper 20s here for the Alaska Peninsula. Below 0, Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, up through much of the interior areas to 20 to 30 below up along the north slope. Otherwise, the southeast coast, mostly in the 20s, lower 30s down to the south. For highs tomorrow, upper 20s to upper 30s here for the Panhandle, mostly in the teens, south central Alaska, locally the lower 20s, 40s along the Alaska Peninsula, upper 30s sweeping into Kodiak Island. 20s to lower 30s here over the southwest interior, staying below 0 there from the Tanana Valley up to the Arctic coast. Flying weather, IFR spreading eastward with that front. Kodiak Island slipping up to the southern Kenai Peninsula, back along with lower conditions on the eastern side of the western Alaska Range with some good IFR here from northern Bristol Bay right up to St. Lawrence Island across the deltas, and back down, wrapping back into the Pribilofs, marginal VFR across the Aleutians, as well as the North Slope and the Arctic coast. Passes, Anatuvik, VFR, good VFR also for Adigan tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR becoming marginal late in the afternoon. Same forecast for rainy, windy VFR throughout the entire day. Isabel staying open. Mentasta looks good. Tanita, good VFR. And Portage, VFR as well. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Looking at the freezing levels here, we've got at the surface a little farther to the north, lifting north of the Pribilofs, and then sweeping back down to east of Shimei and Attu with 2,000 to 4,000 feet here on those strong winds coming up across the Alaska Peninsula. This for late tonight, early tomorrow morning. And as far as icing goes, could be some occasional widespread moderate rime icing below about 16,000 feet. Kodiak Island up to the Aleutian Range, and then that'll extend up to the northwest and on out towards St. Lawrence Island. And then a big area of areas of icing here, mostly below 9,000 feet. Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians up to the Pribilofs. And looking at the jet stream tomorrow, well to the south of the Aleutians, that strong low here in the Bering Sea, pushing that south, but curving northward about 50 knots here, right up into southern Alaska, then diving southeastward right off the Panhandle. And at 9,000 feet northwest, 20 to 25 knots there off the southeast coast, becoming southerly, 10 to 20 knots over the central and eastern interior areas. But the strongest winds, 65 to 75 knots here, southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. South, 40 to 60 knots over the southwest interior, on out toward the Pribilof Islands. Easterlies at 30 knots from the Seward Peninsula to the western Arctic coast. 3,000-foot winds looking something like this. Westerlies starting out at about 55 knots over the western Aleutians, picking up to 60 to 75 knots over the eastern Aleutians and the southern Bering Sea, then dropping back to 55 knots over the Bristol Bay area. Easterlies 50 to 55 knots north of the low center to the Bering Strait areas. And as far as turbulence goes, increasing and advancing eastward throughout the day here. Kodiak Island, occasional moderate chop in the turquoise area, back up across Norton Sound, and severe possible anywhere here in the shaded area, mostly below about 5,000 feet. The Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians coming into the Alaska Peninsula, extending out to Kiska Island. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Convective activity is popping up, or maybe there's ice in the clouds, or low ceilings. Can you get through it safely? Or should you be on the ground waiting out the weather? As an instrument-rated pilot, these are questions you've got to be able to answer. Here at Dulles International Tower in the Radar Approach Control Facility, or RAPCON, there's some weather moving in right now, and that could make things interesting for our debonair crew.
1826, you Edward. We're 220.
How do you find out weather in the vicinity of the airport before you fly into it? You listen to ATIS, right? Well, you can also monitor approach control for a wider look at the local weather in marginal conditions.
Dulles approach, this is US Air 1117, with you descending out of 7,000.
Roger, US Air 1117.
Listen to what's happening with incoming traffic. If they're being cleared for visual approaches, there's halfway decent visibility around the airport. But there could be wind challenges associated with thunderstorms or frontal activity.
US Air 1117, expect ILS runway 1 right approach.
US Air 1117, roger.
Dulles clearance delivery, Debonair 1588 Sierra with Oscar, instruments to Bradford, Pennsylvania.
1588 Sierra cleared to Bradford via the Capital 4 departure, Martinsburg as filed, squawk code 4645.
Roger, 1588 Sierra, the Capital 4 departure to Martinsburg as filed, and 4645 on the transponder.
88 Sierra, readback is correct. Contact ground point Snider when ready to taxi.
Roger, 88 Sierra. 1588 Sierra, taxi to runway 1 left via taxiway Zulu 1 and Zulu, hold short of Alpha. 88 Sierra to runway 1 left via Zulu.
If you can deal with two frequencies at once, listening to departure control while taxiing can give you important information. Airliners do their utmost to avoid turbulence on departure, and if they're deviating, you should consider doing the same. If departure control isn't too busy, you can ask for information right after takeoff.
Dulles Tower 1588 Sierra, number 1 for departure at runway 1 left.
88 Sierra, runway 1 left, cleared for takeoff. Sierra, contact departure.
Over to departure, 88 Sierra. Dulles, departure, 1588 Sierra, climbing through 1,100 for 4,000.
1588 Sierra, radar contact, altimeter 29 or 9 or 6.
This is the Dulles RAPCON radar room. If you're under departure control, you're being monitored in a facility like this. The screens the controllers are looking at are called Plan View Displays, or PVDs. They show the returns from a radar installation on or near the approach control's associated airport. PVDs are the controller's eyes. Most approach facilities have ASR-9 radar. ASR stands for Airport Surveillance Radar. ASR is designed for short-range coverage around an airport. Its primary purpose is tracking aircraft, but it can detect some precipitation too. And that can be a big help on days like today.
88 Sierra, climb and maintain 8,000.
88 Sierra, up to 8,000.
Every radar blip has an N number, a computer code number, an altitude, and a ground speed based on history. On these screens, controllers can see precipitation coming that's going to impact the facility. And based on what they see, they can change standard arrival and departure routes to work around the weather.
Delta 34 Heavy, when able, direct manning, then resume adjacent to arrival.
Ground-based radar has limitations. Among them, radar has a tough time penetrating heavy precipitation. That's because of attenuation, which leads to an incomplete radar return. What's behind the blind spot? Blue skies or tall, dark, and ugly ones? By putting together what a pilot reports seeing with what's displayed on a PVD, pilots and controllers can get a more complete picture.
Approach 88 Sierra with the request.
Go ahead, 88 Sierra.
Yeah, at some point before you hand us off to Washington Center, can you tell us if you're showing any convective activity along our route?
What's the matter? You don't like Center's radar?
Sure, but I like yours even more.
I'll sneak a peek for you before the handoff.
Why does the Debonair crew care whose radar they use? Because not all ATC radar is created equal. ASR-9, as I mentioned, was designed to track airplanes. But Approach Control's ASR-9, even with its limitations, is better at seeing weather than Center's long-range radar. And it's much more accurate in pinpointing areas of precipitation that may be associated with convective activity. Unlike more limited radar at en route centers, ASR-9 can detect 6 levels of precipitation that correspond with National Weather Service VIP for video integrator and processor levels. The higher the VIP level, the more precipitation and the greater possibility of turbulence associated with precipitation. Controllers can select any 2 levels for simultaneous viewing, so the display can be set optimally for the intensity of the activity. The lower levels are displayed as a light green area and the high levels as a brighter green. You can see the difference it makes in definition of the returns. General aviation pilots should avoid any precip area greater than level 2. Approach controllers can usually advise which levels they're painting, but remember 2 things. A level 2 shower can build to level 3 or greater within minutes. Turbulence is often encountered where no radar return is seen. When discussing radar returns, pilots can also ask the direction of movement and if the precipitation appears to be building or diminishing. The reason our pilots called approach control for a look at what's ahead is because they want as accurate a look at what's happening as possible.
At some point before you hand us off to Washington Center, can you tell us if you're showing any convective activity along our route?
And they won't be able to get that same level of definition from Center's radar. The fact is, there's a lot of information available from ATC. For example, pilot reports. This source can be extremely beneficial simply because a report of visually observed weather from an experienced pilot is going to be more accurate than that received from a radar system. When certain weather conditions exist or are forecast, controllers are required to solicit pilot reports on the weather. Pilot reports are forwarded to the local flight service station for dissemination. PIREPs are also retained near the controller's position, so the information can be given to potentially affected flights. Ask controllers for any PIREPs available for your route of flight. But rest assured, even if you don't ask, controllers will often provide general advisories of weather that could affect specific aircraft.
Baron 479er, there's an area of level 4 weather, 12 o'clock, 10 miles, 4 miles wide, moving east.
479er, can you give us vectors around the area?
479er, suggest heading of 170 degrees.
Turning to a heading of 170 degrees, 479er.
Controllers make traffic management look pretty simple, but it's a real high-wire act. And like any precision performance, flying, for example, it requires practice. All the controllers undergo recurrency training, duplicating situations of heavy traffic identical to what they see and deal with on a day like today.
Debonair 1588 Sierra, I'm showing scattered level 1 returns ahead from your 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, but no convective activity at this time. AKwx Washington Center on 134.15. Have a good flight.
Northwest winds out along the coast from 10 knots up to the north to small craft advisories down on the south coast, and then north to northwest 15, except northern Lynn Canal up to 25 knots. And for Monday, those swing around to the south, but only at 15 knots, while south to southeast winds here pick up to 30 knots over the central and southern inside waters. Behind that front, westerly winds at 30 knots, turn a little more southwest here for the north coast there, but seas running 12 to 14 feet. And for Kodiak Island, south winds 30 knots tomorrow, east winds increasing to 25, Shelikof Strait, and east to southeast winds, Kamishak Bay and the Barrens up to 30 knots. Lighter winds for the North Gulf Coast, northwest at 15, light winds for Prince William Sound, northern Cook Inlet. And northeast 10 to 15 here for northern Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound on Monday. Southwesterlies, pretty good fetch here, up to 35 knots there off the coast of Kodiak Island. Southwesterlies at 25 through Shelikof Strait, and then north-northwest 15 to 20 southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay. And storm warnings here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula tomorrow. Southwest 55, 31-foot seas. Good gales there for Bristol Bay out of the southeast, and gales here from Sitkinak all the way out to Cape Sarachev. Then for Monday, southwest 35 knots here, minimum gales there south of the Pacific side of the peninsula, 45 knots on the north side, and holding on to some gales for Bristol Bay. And the big winds out here over the Aleutians tonight and tomorrow, coming down to 55 knots here for the western Aleutians, but westerlies to southwesterlies, 55 to 70 knots for the remainder of the Aleutian chain, with those seas 41 to 53 feet. And then for Monday, the seas and winds come down, 30-knot westerlies here in toward Adak. Pick up the gales here for the central Aleutians. Southwest, 40 to 45 knots in across the Fox Islands. Seas 28 to 33 feet. And for the Pribilofs tomorrow, south 60 knots, gusts 70 to 90 miles per hour, seas up to 40 feet, southeast 50 knots for the southwest coast there. Turning easterly here from the northern Bering Sea to St. Lawrence Island, storm force easterlies 45 to 50 knots, seas 18 to 30 feet. And then for Monday, west winds 40 knots for the Pribilofs, turning south and southwest here as they approach the southwest coast. Easterlies of 45 knots for St. Lawrence Island, turning northwest there for St. Matthew Island. And the Arctic coast, central coast, all the way to demarcation point tomorrow, east 15 knots, brisk wind advisories from Wales up to Cape Beaufort out of the northeast. And those will increase east-northeasterlies again in that same area to 30 knots, and the western Arctic coast picking up some brisk wind advisories, and the east side as well, up to 25 knots for brisk wind advisories there. For tonight, snow showers mostly in the Gulf of Alaska, but the big storm out here and hurricane force winds, high wind warnings for the entire Aleutian chain into the Pribilof Islands, with gusty winds and precipitation reaching the Alaska Peninsula areas, winds increasing along the southwest coast, and then snow pushes inland. Blizzard warnings out for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, St. Lawrence Island up to the Bering Strait coast. Fair, but starting to pick up the winds over the interior as well. Scattered snow showers right off the coast of the Panhandle. Then for Monday, that front really weakens but pushes eastward, brings some snow across the northern Panhandle, gusty winds and snow out to the west. That's a look at the weather for this evening. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.